Yeah. Right. Okay, beautiful. All right. So welcome again for week 3 of our virtual coaching. This week is about the controllers. I'm just going to share my screen. Just give me a moment and I will share the screen so that we can all see what's happening in the screen. All right, beautiful. Now, okay, so this week is about the controllers. So the controllers are, I'm just going to minimize our windows. The controllers are the people in our world that give us grief, to put it bluntly. They don't really mean to be mean, but they can come across that way. They can come across very, very intimidating and like angry birds. So that's what we're going to be discussing a little bit about tonight is the controllers. Excuse me. So with the controllers, let's define the controllers. So the controllers have a tendency to fixate. One of the things that they do is fixate on the worst case scenario. And they're always in search of a survival manual. They have very much the alpha factor. They're kind of born with that. If that's their personality and they've developed that personality over years, they have that, the alpha is always there with a controller. So if you have to work with someone like that, or you have maybe a parent or a child or a friend or a partner that's like that, and they tend to give you a bit of grief, then what you need to be able to do is learn how to match their power, okay? Match their power. Because in order to achieve their respect, you need to have the power transferred to you or conferred to you, or you must build it, because they're not easy people to get on with. They can be the great people, but they're not always that way inclined. So the controller type likes the common ground. They believe in fighting for the truth and justice in the world. That's what they do mostly. They believe it's up to them as gallant crusaders to protect the weak, to right wrongs, and to make the world a better place. They're both action-oriented and can have a huge effect on their family, friends, and colleagues, and perhaps even the country and the world. They're willing to sacrifice themselves, if need to, for the greater good. So the combination in the Enneagram structure, which I use, is Enneagram 1, which is a perfectionist, and Enneagram 8, which is a protector, or the Knight. I call them the Knight. They're very powerful, they're strong-willed and determined, and they're really decisive and direct all of the time. You might remember from week 1, we talked about the national study from the Australian Bureau of Statistics on mental health and well-being. And we also looked at the Forbes report and the Gartner report, as we did last week as well. So what it all means is people are looking from COVID, since COVID, during COVID and since COVID, people are now looking at life differently, different perspectives, different colored glasses, and they want to have meaning in their life, meaning and purpose. There's a lot of people are claiming, they have mental disability right now. That's really quite, sad, really. But they're in a place where they're like in no man's land. Okay, but since the COVID, the people who are strong, who like to, who have found their way, they've shifted their attitude, and what they're looking at is they've rethought the whole work process and where they're going to go to work and how often they're going to go to work and how many days a week they're going to spend there and how many days working from home. And they want to contribute more to society as well. So in addition to that, another survey that we've done, this is by an Australian company, they said, I covered this last week, but just very briefly, 25% of the population who were surveyed are interested in how much they earn, remuneration, and 22% is in their well-being. So you can see now the well-being and how people's, mental health and overall wellness is super important to them right now. So one of the things that the controllers do very, very well is they have a lot of passion in whatever they do. If they love what they do, they're very passionate about it, and they will shout it from the rooftops. So what I'm inviting you to do in this series and leading up to and including the wellness retreat is I want you to help yourself rediscover your own personal power. What's your passion and your purpose in life? Excuse me. If you feel like you've lost it or maybe never had it, it might be time to reconsider, think about that what's happening in the world around us, in the general population. And the way that I'm presenting this to you, I use what we call NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And I use the growth and healing process with the Enneagram, and of course, the magical identity of the archetypes. So Zig Ziglar said, your life is a result of your choices, the choices you have made. If you don't like your life, start making better choices. I think that's a very good message, especially for a controller. So again, digging deeper into the self-awareness using the brain science and the Enneagram in NLP. This week is E1, the perfectionist, and the protector, which is the Enneagram 8. So I'd like to share a story, as I do every week. I want to share a story with you. This story is about the perfectionist, and this is about Carol. So Carol had always wanted to run her own business. She'd studied really hard in her education and tertiary education, with a plan of setting up her own business at some point in the future. Fate stepped in, and she ended up working in various high-level positions for a variety of companies, where she was able to sharpen her own business instincts and skills. Setting up business adventures is what she did for most of her working life. Sometimes she would go on site and do it in-house. And what she focused on mainly was the analytical aspects of it. The company she worked for was large. The last one she worked for was large. And there were specialists in all areas who could then follow on from what she did, which is in her proposals. And then she never had to see the rest of that business come to fruition. But even though she was successful in her field, this wasn't what she had wanted to do. And the urge to continue to set up her own dream business was still strong. As the years passed, she was still unsure as to what business would be viable, and knew she needed to take on a project with real passion and determination. So by chance, Carol noticed there was an exhibition on, and it was about holiday homes available at Byron Bay, kilometers of beach and dream homes. And she was curious. So she went along to this exhibition, realizing that this could give her an opportunity to set up her own business. She liked the idea of having holiday lets and offering management services for other owners, although she had never considered doing this before. But she knew she had the drive to make it happen. She also had the capital to buy a place in Mullumbimby. And with no family ties, she decided that this is where she was going to live, a great opportunity that she can't miss. She spent the next few months putting together a business plan and researched the area really well. She realized there was a gap in the market in her chosen area for such a venture, and purchased her own property where there were an array of multicultural English-speaking residents and owners. The location was perfect for tourism. She left nothing to chance, always analytical. That's who she was. Her research was meticulous, and her business planning excellent. The property she had purchased had a separate apartment, which she could market on Airbnb and bring in some extra income while she was setting up her business. There was an external building which she determined to set up as her office space. Eventually, people would come to her to discuss their property needs. She was a consummate professional and wanted to take her usual level of professionalism into this new business venture. Her business began to thrive. Property owners in the region were more than happy to hand over their properties to her. They recognized how professional she was. And she soon built up a reputation for her business excellence. The problem began when Carol became overwhelmed with work and needed to take on others to help her. Previously, she had worked for a company with established members of staff. Now, she found it difficult to find the right people and those that she could trust. She was afraid that if she made the wrong decisions, her reputation and business would suffer as a result. She eventually took on 2 office employees, each with their own unique responsibilities. And as time went on, she found that she couldn't let go of the reins. She was desperately in need to take a holiday. And she needed to do so because she was tired and overworked. But in her mind, no one was able to do the job as good as her. You see, she was a perfectionist. Her standards very high. And even though her 2 employees worked hard, she still couldn't completely let go. As time went on, she realized that this was part of her personality, and it was causing her big problems, and she needed to understand why. So the perfectionist is also what I call the ruler and the reformer. In light, they're very insightful, highly ethical, productive, wise, idealistic, and very detail-oriented. In shadow, they're inflexible, anxious, judgmental, controlling, overbearing. They micromanage. The challenge is they believe that in order to survive, you must be perfect. And they compensate by micromanagement. Demand things be done at the highest possible standard that can't be below her own standards, and unrelenting in the pursuit of perfection. So the ruler, their basic desire is to have integrity and be balanced. The key motivation is to be right, to improve the world, to be consistent in their ideals, to be beyond criticism. Their basic fear is for people to feel that they're corrupt or defective or evil in some way. They seek rightness. Some of the people who live in this world were Plato, Gandhi, Joan of Arc, Pope John Paul, Mandela, Kate Middleton, Mary Poppins, Katharine Hepburn, and you can see the rest on the screen. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, then the archetypes are there for you that they acted out in the Game of Thrones. So how do you get along with these people? The perfectionist, the ruler, the person who needs to do things right, perfectly all the time. We need to take our share of responsibility so that they don't end up doing all the work. Openly acknowledge their achievements. They are very high achievers. and they do it the right way. They might take their time, but they'll do it the right way first time. They're really hard on themselves, so reassure them that they are fine the way that they are. Let them know that you value their advice. They want you to be fair and considerate. And if you are mistaken or make an error or have been unthoughtful, apologize so that they can forgive. And they will. They do. Gently, don't push them, but gently encourage them to lighten up and to laugh at themselves. If they're uptight, then we just need to help them, let it go, liven things up a little bit. And humor always does that, mostly. As parents, they teach their children responsibility and strong moral values. So the next story I want to tell you is, and anybody who has any questions, you're welcome to come onto voice and give me ask the question. I'm happy to answer any questions, or you can leave it to the end. That's also acceptable as well. So this story is about Kerry, and Kerry was fiercely protective of her team. She's well respected within her role as a senior manager, and she was the person that the other managers turned to when they experienced problems, because she was always able to problem solve really effectively and easily. She was a natural leader. She was also unafraid of voicing her concerns to the directors and of presenting a case where necessary. Her working life began when she became director. And within a short time later, her boss, her director, had gone and a new director had started. This new director made many quick decisions, changing the work processes and the job profiles without sufficient research in Kerry's mind. Initially, Kerry was prepared to sit back and to observe the changes to ensure her perception of the situation was correct. But as time went on, she began to lose highly skilled members of her own team who were unsettled by the number of changes. She decided to voice her concerns. Although she had always been held highly respected by the other directors, this time they seemed unprepared to listen. Kerry felt as if she'd been alienated from within her role. The situation grew worse now. As a controller, she usually enjoyed a good battle. And she knows her way is one of integrity and honesty, and was not prepared to let him win this battle. She suddenly felt betrayed by the company after so many years of loyalty to them, and in this case, did not show any support. These thoughts led to her feelings of self-doubt and hopelessness. In many ways, Kerry felt almost childlike, as if her power had been disconnected. She felt vulnerable. Not used to feeling this way, she began to shut off her emotions to protect herself, certain that her own job was on the line. What was she to do? Well, of course, Kerry was a knight, a protector. She worked with her mentor and began to dig deep. And in doing so, found herself stepping up to the challenge. Knowing her strength comes from her struggles, she decides to surrender no more. Because it's in vulnerability she finds the courage to continue and grow. She understands that love springs from inside. It's the immortal surge of passion, excitement, determination, power, strength, and vitality that nourishes, extends, and protects. It's life she chooses on her terms. She began to realize that the fire that burns within is fueled by her gaining external recognition. It's a living fire that lightens the darkness. And if she wanted to thrive in her environment, she needed to take action. So the knight is also known as the warrior or the protector. In light, they're solid, confident, proud leaders, passionate, courageous, seek challenge, defend the vulnerable, and they love to win. In shadow, they can sacrifice their own needs to save others. They get disillusioned when their goals are not realized. And their challenge is that they believe that in order to survive, you need to become strong and powerful. They compensate. They deny the vulnerability with self, and they devalue, they can seemingly devalue others. They're impulsive and excessive, and they demand the truth. It's the search for respect that is denied in their search for love. So how do they communicate? Their basic desire is control, survival, and protection. Their motivation is to be self-reliant and prove their strength, to resist weakness, to be important and remembered long into the future after they've gone. They want to dominate their environment. That's their motivation. Their basic fear is feeling vulnerable. They don't want to be hurt or controlled by others. They seek power. They live for power. On the right-hand side there, you see many different people who are known in the Enneagram world as eights. There's some amazing people there, as you can see. So how do you communicate with them? You allow them some control. I'll repeat that. You allow them some control. But you must strike a balance. Because if you give too much, they will take over the conversation. They will just take over. They typically come off very direct and intimidating. They don't like to be controlled. So it's important, if you're working with these people, that in your body language, you don't show that you have control over them. If you give them too much, they will seize control rather than risk being controlled. That's the goal. I will control so that I will not be controlled. So you need to be confident and strong, direct and respectfully stand your ground. They're independent. They have inner strength and a fighting spirit. If they speak in an assertive manner, don't take it personally. It's not always about you. Listen to what is not being said. They've often grown up in a difficult or abusive surroundings, so strength becomes power, and protecting the vulnerable becomes their focus. They have their own moral code. They'll break all the rules, but they have a very high moral code of their own. So allow them to stand up and empower you. Be vulnerable and share your feelings. See and acknowledge their vulnerable side. They do like the feeling of close connection, although they will give the impression not. Give them some space to be on their own, because when they need to be on their own, They need to be on their own. And if you interfere with that, you'll know about it loud and clear. So if they choose it, allow them to be on their own. When they scream and jump up and down and curse and do all those things, try to remember that it's just the way they are. There's a lot of processing going on inside, and they're very reactive, highly emotional. So here are some of the favorite movies of these people. So on the left-hand side there, we have more of the perfectionistic type with Mandela and the Iron Lady and the Body and the Old Guard. And then, of course, on the right-hand side, we have more of the 8 personality type. So if you like some of those movies, it might be a sign that you have some tendencies toward being a controller yourself. So next week, guys, we're talking about the harmonizer triad, which is there was 3 different, the last 3 Enneagram types. So E3 is the achiever, the 6 is the questioner, and the 9 is the peacemaker. What else we've got coming up over the next few weeks? We've got next week is the 13th, which of course is the harmonics triad. The week after, I'm going to be talking about the 6 core human needs. Power versus love. It's about relationships. And the relationship can be a work relationship. It can be a personal relationship. It doesn't really matter. It's about relationships. Then we have 7th of September, clearing the shadows and blind spots. This is when we start to introduce new strategies for you, so that you can look at things differently. And the 5th of October is your personal power and living with passion and purpose. That's what's coming up over the next couple of months. So a little bit about in 2 weeks time, we've got the 6 core human needs. So I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, but I would like you to think about when we have we're talking about understanding people's behavior. In the last 3 weeks, including tonight, we talk about the different kind of personality types that are out there, and we have exposure to. Every human being has 6 core needs: certainty, variety, significance and connection, and growth and contribution. That is mixed in very closely with the archetype world. So on the screen there, I'll be talking about this in a couple of weeks' time. So we have masculine archetypes and feminine. Now, I'm not talking about male and female. I'm talking about energy, masculine energy and feminine energy. And both male and female will feel both of those. And they live in different archetypal worlds. We will often have very alpha women and very soft and more nurturing men. Okay, so it's not male and female, it's the energy I'm referring to, the masculine energy and the feminine energy. We'll also talk about different relationships and what an ideal relationship needs. So with the 6 core needs, just very, very quickly, the first one is about certainty. We all need to have some degree of certainty to make us feel comfortable. Some of us in our personality types need more certainty. They seek more certainty than others. Others like more variety. But in effect, we look for certainty to avoid pain and experience the pleasure. And it is a fundamental survival instinct. Variety, on the other hand, is we like things to change quickly. People who live in the certainty world, they don't really like a lot of change. They're more consistent. But someone in the variety world or the uncertainty, they like variety. And you'll hear them say variety is the spice of life. So the quality of our life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty that we can comfortably live with. So if you are the kind of individual that likes certainty all the time, you probably find yourself very often feeling alone and looking for more joy in your life. Variety, when you have a balanced certainty and variety in your life, and you can shift between, up and down the scale, it allows you to let go more. Then we have significance and connection. And significance is about everybody needs to feel important and wanted. When we're babies, we needed to feel number one. And that need is still with us. We need to feel special, important, and in some way, it's helped to shape who you are today. We can feel significant by building or achieving something, or we can feel significant by tearing something down or somebody down. But in all cases, significance comes from comparing yourself to others. The fourth need is love and connection. Everybody needs connection. It's a core human feeling. It's survival. At the core, we need love and connection. It gives us hope. If you're alive today, and you are, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't, you were loved. And you needed to feel loved and touched in order to survive. And it's still at your core. In this sense, love and connection are the ultimate survival instincts. Can you imagine to which lengths people will go to get this need met? So the four core needs I've just discussed, they're our biological needs. They're our personal needs. And they must be met by everyone to some level. The last two needs are of the spirit, and they are essential to leading a fulfilled life. We need growth and contribution. We need to constantly develop emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. There is a universal law about growth. Everything is either growing or dying. There is no middle ground. Anything you want to remain in your life, your money, your body, your relationship, your happiness or love, must be cultivated, developed, expanded, nurtured. Otherwise, it will degenerate. And the final core need is contribution. Everything in the universe contributes beyond itself, or it's eliminated. Most emotional problems and sources of pain disappear when you focus on serving beyond yourself. Through your contribution, energy, time, attention, focus, money, whatever it might be, to your partner or your family or the people you work with, and society in general. It extends who we are. And it is an essential part of our personal development and spiritual fulfillment. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So last week, I showed you this slide and asked you some questions to think about. Who are you? What would be the cost if you made no change in your life? If you're looking for change, you probably are, because that's why you're here. What will it cost you if you make no change? What will you gain when you make that change? How will your life be different? How will your life improve once you've made the changes you desire? Are you prepared to let go of the past if it didn't get you the results you wanted? What are the likely consequences if you continue down this path? Think of how much you've grown over the past few weeks in learning these new strategies. Have you shared your thoughts with a mentor, either internally or externally? Bring to mind somebody that you truly admire, trust, and respect. How do you think they would approach the situation? A situation you would like to change in your life. And I wonder what would happen if you weren't scared. What would you do? So keep thinking about those questions. What do you want? What do you want out of life? What's your purpose here? We've all reached an age, whatever age that might be. It's different for all of us. What do you want? What's your passion? Your passion? What are you most passionate about? What do you love, absolutely love to do? It will help you to get what you want. And that's it for that little piece of information. So I'm just going to get rid of the share. Don't need that any longer. Stop share. And I'm going to stop the recording. Stop